Hello again, YouTube. It's been quite a while since my last video post, more than a year, I think. I decided to make a new video. The reason being mostly that I've been getting requests from the incoming ALTs to make more videos, and so I thought I'd make a video giving the new incoming ALTs some tips on how to best work in Japan. I've been here for 2.5 years now. I am good at my job. I'm respected by my coworkers. I do a good job here. I love my students and am loved by them, I think. And so I think it's fair to say that I'm an experienced ALT, and I think I am qualified to give you guys some tips. So without further ado, top 5 teaching tips for newbie ALTs. Tip number 1, spend time learning how each of your teachers teaches. What I mean by this is that every Japanese teacher has their own style of teaching. You'll learn this eventually, especially at the Skills Development Conference, which is held each year, where you're going to meet a lot of ALTs and a lot of Japanese teachers. And if I had to choose one thing to take away from those conferences, it's that I learned that every Japanese teacher has their own style of teaching. So when you arrive here, it's really useful if you right away start paying attention to how they conduct their classes. Because it's going to be different. Each teacher is going to expect a different thing of you, right? And they're all going to have also a different level of English. So it's useful to kind of get a hang and know which teachers to expect what from right at the beginning, because these are the people you're going to be working with for, at least a year. And when you know what to expect from each teacher, it makes it a lot easier to make lesson plans. And once you kind of have an idea of how they conduct their classes, and you've got your own sort of place in their way that they conduct their classes, then it's much easier for them also to learn what to expect from you. So you end up having a bit of a presence in their lesson plan. They end up, relying on you and depending on you. But you got to learn what they want first, right? Makes sense. It's also a really good way to start building good relationships with your coworkers, especially the English teachers, because those are the people that you're going to go to if you don't speak Japanese, if you've got questions or issues or any number of things. So, number 1, learn how each of your teachers teaches. Tip number 2, make best friends with your supervisor. I feel like this seems like an obvious tip, but it's so super important. Your supervisor, your direct supervisor, is the most important Japanese person on earth to you. He or she, in my case, he, is your most direct link to sort of the job things that go on in your life. But not just in like the schools that you work at, also things like vacation days or sick days. He's the one that you talk to about those kind of things. If you're sick, you call him. If you're stuck in traffic, if your car exploded, if you missed a flight, if your house burned down, this is the person that you're going to talk to. So it is a good idea to be super duper friends with this person. I happen to have a fantastic relationship with my supervisor. I've been to his house for dinner. I've played with his 2 adorable daughters, and I've thrown them in the ocean, which is a lot of fun. Side note. But yeah, this is the guy that you want to talk to about vacation days and sick days and medical expenses. Like, I got hit by a car, so who do you call? Supervisor. Make friends with that person. Make friends with that person. Tip number 3, students, build a good relationship with them. This really should be the most important thing that you do. And the reason it's not tip number 1 is that the best way for you to get to know your students, as far as I'm concerned, the most efficient way is for you to build a good relationship with the people that work most closely with them, their teachers. So you're not going to know them, but when you arrive, you're not going to know them. But the best way to get to know them is to work closely with the people that already know them. Building a good relationship with your students is especially important because if they like you, they're going to pay that much more attention in your classes. I know this, believe me. In fact, I would say that at first, it's actually not even important for you to necessarily teach English. I would say the first thing is for you to establish a good sort of rapport with them. I want them, ideally, I want you to be able to walk into a classroom and they're thinking, that guy, last time he was here, that was kind of fun. That really helps. It does help because you could do both. You can have fun classes and you can teach stuff. But the important thing at first is to make sure that they're not you don't walk in the classroom and they're like, oh my God, this ALT again, right? That's bad. Doesn't happen with me. But I have had some bad classes before, and I know that it makes a difference if they're interested in the classes that you're going to teach. Another thing is that Japanese students are typically shy, so make sure that you are not. You got to lead the class, so you got to do the talking. Even when they're totally deadly quiet, you got to be the one to get them to talk, right? So try to do something interesting. I would recommend, maybe not at first, but have sort of a signature thing. For example, for me, every time I walk in a classroom, and especially if I'm teaching that class, all my students are going to stand up. We're going to talk a little bit. They're all going to high five. Like I will spend 5 minutes making sure that all the students high five each other correctly, not just like high five. No, like good high five. You know. And it's little things like that. They know that. I walk through the halls in this school now, and there's some students that look at me and go, "Sup." It's fantastic. It's such a good relationship, and it feels really good. So build a good relationship with your students. At first, the best way to do this is, through working well with your other teachers. Eventually, once you have a good relationship, you can just talk to the students. You can build it better and better. And I highly recommend you do so because it makes teaching their classes that much more enjoyable. And I think it makes a difference in their education. I think they retain more information if they like the person it's coming from. Tip number 4, develop your own teaching style. So by this point in the game, you're going to want to already have made good relationships with your co-teachers. You're going to want to have started at least building some rapport with your students. And when you get into like the middle of the year, it's a good time to start developing your own sort of teaching style. Now, this is not going to be possible all the time because some classes you won't have 100% responsibility over the students at all times. You'll have, you'll just be repeating things, or, you'll have like an activity or something that you'll lead at the end of class or at the beginning of class. So it's not always 100% your class, but occasionally, and these are opportunities, it is your class. Even though there's a Japanese teacher in the class, you're in charge, essentially. So what I mean by teaching style is that you want the students to sort of know what to expect when you walk in a classroom. You want to have like an outline. The outline I like to use is warm up at the beginning of the class, right? And then sort of the body of the lesson, whatever it may be, and then activity at the end. And this is my favorite part of the class, is because if you do it right, the activity at the end should be a group activity in which students can speak English to one another. I think it helps like reinforce whatever the main body of the class was. Anyway, that's what I mean by sort of like an outline structure. And if you have a good relationship with the students, the beginning of the class can be something really light. It can be a story you tell, which I did a lot of. It could be a question you ask, have them talk in pairs, that kind of thing. But if you really want to get a sense in your teaching style of how long your classes are with those students, whatever level they may be, and have an idea of how long each part is going to take. Because that way you can, if you have a class you want to do where you want to emphasize a certain point, you can kind of bend the other two sides and you can put that wherever you want. It makes a big difference if you have an idea of how the class is going to go in terms of time. So by having your own teaching style, really what you should be able to do is be able to walk into a classroom, it's like a surprise class, and maybe 5-10 minutes prior of preparation, and have it go smoothly. And 80% of that is going to be you having a good relationship with your students. So, tip number 3, get on that. Tip number 5, Don't be picky. And I know that there are people that have dietary restrictions that are non-voluntary. If you're allergic to something, or if you're lactose intolerant, something like that, that's, you work with that. That's fine. Japanese people totally get that. But there's also people that just don't like fish, or don't want to try something that they've never tried before, or something that they think doesn't look good, or something like that. But you have to think about how you're going to be in situations where you'll be invited to parties, like work parties or an enkai, and there's going to be already a set menu. And, it could conceivably happen that you're asked to try something and people are going to be kind of waiting to see your reaction. And it doesn't look as good for you if you look, I don't like fish, or I don't want to try that, or something like that. Bend your rules. If they're offering you something, that means it's safe to eat. You're not going to die, right? Other people are eating it. I have this rule that I like to follow, which is if I don't know what something is, just try it. If I like it, I'll ask what it is. I could try it again later. If I don't like it, I just don't ask what it is and move on to the next delicious thing that could come your way. But yeah, so tip number 5 is don't be picky. Bend your rules about food while you're in Japan, because you never know. You try these new things, you actually end up loving them. I have. So there it is. Top 5 teaching tips for incoming ALTs. I hope that y'all like this one. Maybe I'll do one more video, maybe top 5 things outside of work, or something like that. I haven't thought that much about it. But please do let me know if you would like to have me keep doing these kinds of things, because maybe I will get back into it. Anyway, till next time.